morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today, we've got a new Obstagoon to look at. Now, bearing in mind, we have previously seen one Obstagoon, and that Obstagoon is really good. Like making top 4 at an international championships despite the fact it's a stage 2 in 2020. Good. So hopefully this one can either be as good, or at least fit nicely as a little partner in that deck. Now, it shouldn't really surprise you to hear our translation does come from the lovely Antoine Boulet here, but it also comes from the lovely David Hockman. They are in agreement. And I even used Google Translate and I got this one right. Go team! So we've got 170 HP, and 170 HP is high for a stage 2. It's more than we would generally expect, and it's actually 10 more than the other Obstagoon had. That's really good. Retreat cost of 2 means you can get free retreat using Air Balloon, but it is worth remembering that we just saw Hidden Energy, that new darkness energy that gives free retreat to any darkness Pokemon it's attached to. So we've actually got a couple different options here, which are rather lovely. Weakness to grass, just don't worry your pretty little head about it. Until Rillaboom suddenly ascends to the throne as I keep expecting it to and being disappointed because he doesn't, I don't think we need to worry about the weakness to grass. And we're a darkness Pokemon. It means you're hitting weakness against Dragapult V Max. That's pretty gosh darn relevant at the moment, and will be more and more relevant moving forward, because that card looks awesome. It means you got Black Market Prism Star, so if you got a Darkness Energy attached and Black Market Prism Star out, you don't give up a prize when you are KO'd. Pretty nice time to be a Darkness Pokemon. But what does it actually do? Well, the ability says, once during your turn, you may have your opponent discard cards from their hand until they only have 4 cards in their hand. Oh. Yeah, that sounds pretty gosh darned disruptive. Now, it actually sounds kinda broken. Except, this isn't the first time we've seen this. Now, it's a little bit of a deep cut, but does anyone remember the Salamence from Dragon Vault? This was a random stage 2 that came out quite a few years ago in a mini set, but the Salamence from Dragon Vault had the ability Scornful Storm. Once during your turn, you may have your opponent discard cards from his or her hand until he or she has 4 cards left in his or her hand. That's when they really went hard into the his or her hand language. The point is, we've seen this before. And the problem is that this Salamence actually wasn't amazing. Looked amazing. Had potential coming out of the wazoo, was one that I was very excited about, as I know were a lot of people, but I've not really seen, and I mean this literally, any good decks that took advantage of that ability. It was one that I got excited about, and certainly I tested it, but I found the same thing that most people did, I imagine at least, when they started testing this, and that is, it's not working. It's just not gonna work. It's too expensive as a stage 2. But do remember, we are currently playing an Obstagoon anyway, so maybe it is going to work with the other Obstagoon. We'll get there in a moment. Now, as for the ability itself, think of it kind of like a Judge or a Marnie, except your opponent isn't shuffling their hand into their deck and drawing 4 cards, or in the case of Marnie, shuffling it, putting it on the bottom of their deck and drawing 4 cards. They are discarding until they have 4 cards. And here's the really fun one here. For your opponent, they get the choice. And that's what really gets this ability. Now, if you got to look at your opponent's hand and discard until they had 4 cards remaining in their hand, and you got to look at their hand and you got to make the choice, then all of a sudden I would feel very, very differently about this card. I would be a huge fan. We see this in the Persian from Team Up, as the attack Make and Pay, single colorless energy, 20 damage, and if your opponent's got 4 or more cards in hand, you take a look and you choose to discard cards from their hand until they've got 4 remaining. If this was that on an ability, I would love it. because you could then leave your opponent with a really awkward hand and it would be kind of hilarious. But that's not what we've got here. Your opponent has the choice. Now, there are going to be some decks that love this. Because, of course, if you're playing something like a Malamar deck, so you want energy in the discard, or a Zoroark deck, so you want Pokemon in the discard, or an Alolan Ninetales deck, so that you want tools in the discard, you're probably going to be in a pretty good position if your opponent starts using this ability. Because you're going to go, oh, well, actually, I'm playing Alolan Ninetales. I want as many tools in the discard as I can. You need me to discard 3 cards from my hand. I've got 3 tools in my hand. So actually, now you've done me a solid, and I'm doing an extra 30 damage. Most of the time, this is still going to be a disruptive ability, mind you. And let's be super clear about this. It is a good ability. It is not the best possible version of this ability. It could be better. But that doesn't mean it's not a good ability. Because your opponent has to discard cards from their hand until they've got 4 remaining. And again, I say this quite a bit in my videos because I think it really is the best way to test. If you want to know how good this ability is, next time you're playing Pokemon, every couple of minutes, just look at your hand and go, right, if I right now, or maybe at the beginning of every one of your opponent's turns, look at your hand and go, right, what would the outcome be if my opponent forced me right now to discard until I had 4 cards remaining in hand? We've all been there, right? Where we want to play Quick Ball. Quick Ball makes you discard a card from your hand, but then you get to search for any basic Pokemon. Same thing with Aurora Energy, but instead of searching for a basic Pokemon, you're attaching an energy which is any kind of energy, but only one at any one time. These are good cards, but we've all been there where actually there's no cards you really want to discard. Well, that's kind of the case here, except it could be 2 or 3, and you're getting no benefit. I do think this is a really good ability. Not perfect, but really good. And I do think that if people get this rolling, there are going to be games where you can force your opponent to make such horrible discards from their hand that they end up not really being able to cope, and they end up losing the game. Is it worth playing as a Stage 2 on its own? Probably not. For the ability, at least. But remember, the Obstagoon from Sword and Shield has got that redonkulous attack that makes you immune to basic Pokemon. Now, it's also got the quite nice ability that when you evolve into it, you drop 3 damage counters onto a Pokemon. And it does evolve from the Galarian Zigzagoon that when you bench it, you get to drop 1 damage counter. And what this all means is there is a reason to play Obstagoon anyway. And this Obstagoon from Sword and Shield gets significantly worse in games where your opponent isn't relying on basic Pokemon. See where I'm going with this? Just play a free 1 line. Play one of this Obstagoon with 3 of the others, and because you're playing Obstagoon anyway, this becomes a 1-card tech. And yeah, you're only playing 3 of the other Obstagoon, not 4, I'm sure you'll cope. And now all of a sudden it's worth it. Playing this as its own deck? No. Playing this as a 1-card deck in an existing Obstagoon deck? Yes! I really like that. Now, in terms of the attack here, it's kind of underwhelming-ish. 3 colourless energy, 180 damage, you can't attack next turn. Now, in terms of the energy cost, it is 1 more than the other Obstagoon, and we cope alright with that one. But you can use triple acceleration energy to pay this in 1 go. And the fact of the matter is that if you attach a triple acceleration energy, you will then get a 1-hit KO very easily on Dragapult V Max, which is not the case with the other Obstagoon. You do 180 including weakness, and you don't block it because it's a V Max. Now, you do have to play triple acceleration energy, and incidentally, I do think you have to play triple acceleration energy. The other Obstagoon, you're slowing the game down. I do think you have the advantage of just being able to manually attach. I don't think that's the case here. I think you need triple acceleration energy. But once again, you're doing really well here. You're doing 180 damage. No, it's not great in every matchup, but it will KO a Dedenne for 2 prizes, and it will KO a Crobat V for 2 prizes, and it will KO a Dragapult V Max for 3 prizes. And actually here, It's a great tech. I don't think generally having to use a triple acceleration energy on a stage 2 Pokemon to only do 180 is enough. You'll be getting weaker GXs and Vs, you won't be getting VMAXs, you won't be getting tag teams, you will be getting most single prize Pokemon, but it's one of your 4 in your deck triple acceleration energies, and it falls off at the end of your turn, and it can be awkward to find, and all of that stuff. Although, to be fair, Piers does make it significantly easier to search it out, which is quite nice. But the fact of the matter is, if you're playing it as a single card tech, and because you've got Piers which will search you any energy, you absolutely can play one triple acceleration energy if you're playing Piers anyway, and reliably get it when you need it. I love this. I love this as a single card tech in an Obstagoon deck. If you just want to play Obstagoon, no, I don't think this is anywhere near as good as the one from Sword and Shield, because the extra damage and the making yourself immune to basics literally took someone to the top 4 of an international championships. You know, the biggest and best tournaments you get before you get to the world championships. But I do think that if you're playing Obstagoon anyway, this is a 1-card tech, maybe with a 2nd card for triple acceleration energy, and all of a sudden you've got an attack that can KO some very widely played Pokemon for multiple prizes, and an ability which is going to put so much pressure on your opponent. If you're making them discard until they've got 4 cards in the hand every time you take a turn, that is going to wear on your opponent. And sure, maybe they can play extra aggressively so they've only ever got a 4-card hand, but then again, if they're doing anything different to what they usually would want to just to try and hurt you, that's a win for you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm giving this between 3 and 4 Wassies. I do think it works by itself. I just don't think it's a top-tier deck. But I do think it makes a top-tier deck very, very much better, and that makes me happy. Obviously, don't give half Wassies. That would be barbaric. But now, ladies and gentlemen, I want to know what you think, so let me know in the comment section. Go nuts, be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at The Wassie, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassiePlays, where you can find out about a whole bunch of games that don't have Pokemon in, but are pretty gosh darned awesome nonetheless. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.